how has COVID affected, because obviously it's made us online, but can you tell me a little bit about like what you do right now and how COVID's affected that too?
Definitely. Yeah. So COVID has had a big impact on the industry that I'm in. So I'm in food and beverage services. So we do food and beverage at convention centers, stadiums, arenas, and things like that. So you can't go to a conference. So there's no need for services. And I work in the IT department. So we usually support not only the corporate office, but also all the field locations. So we've had to pivot from people working at locations to people working from home. And our folks already are not super comfortable with technology. So it's definitely been, people bringing screens home thinking it's an all-in-one computer, but it's not. And then like all kinds of fun stories like that, of the challenges of that. And I've actually been home since March 13th. So
that's set up my own.
Yeah. You miss the office. I definitely miss like my friends in the office and that clear delineation between work life, which I'm sure you feel too with school. Like it never leaves you. Like it never leaves.
Exactly.
My office is like right by my bed.
Oh yeah, no, mine's the same. I can see my desk from where I'm sleeping, and so there's no clear, okay, now it's time for me to relax, and now it's time for me to go work or for me to do schoolwork. It's really hard to delineate that.
Yeah, my friend was like, just close your work laptop, and I was like, yeah, but that still doesn't work.
Exactly, it's hard, and I personally struggle like finding the balance between, okay, yeah, you can reach me at any time, this is great, and okay, no, I need to step away. How do you manage that? Because I'm personally struggling with that right now.
Yeah, so that's a great question, and it's something that every day I have to like remind myself. And I'm a salaried employee, so that means that like I get paid a certain amount, so I don't get overtime, things like that. So for me, I feel like this obligation to be available like 24/7, like I sometimes find myself answering emails at like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then I'm like, whoa, like you gotta slow your roll. But what I've started doing is I'm also really involved with some nonprofits in the area. So I've been trying to like balance like, okay, like we're gonna have a virtual meeting like at 6 o'clock, and then I know, okay, you're closing your work computer, you're not gonna check your email, which is hard, and you're just gonna say, hey, like I block out time on my like work calendar so that I'm busy. But yeah, every day I have to remind myself, hey, like you're also a human, and like you need to not look at screens 24/7, because that's what we're doing now is you Zoom and talk to people, and then you watch TV to watch the news, or you read like on your Kindle, and next thing you know, you've spent like 12 hours looking at a screen and your eyes are like freaking out.
Exactly. It's really hard, but I'm glad you found at least some way to deal with that, because I've been trying to do the same of just, okay, now I'm definitely at this work, now I'm definitely in class, like this is specifically for schoolwork.
And like writing a calendar has also helped me, like not having like a digital calendar, like actually writing like a paper planner, because I'm somebody that I love to like check stuff off. So like that's been like, and I already have like 2 planners, like one for my like social like volunteer and then one for work, and that I think has been like my like saving grace in this, because it's like, no, like you don't have to get through all your tasks today, like you can move it till tomorrow, like that's okay, or next week. Just like changing the priority and taking a walk instead, like getting outside, I think has also been like a help, just to like remember that you're human.
Yeah, and I don't know where you're located, but the weather, at least in Maryland, has been lovely lately. Nice fall.
Yeah, so I'm actually in Greenville, South Carolina. So it's sort of, I don't know how people usually don't know where Greenville is, but it's between Charlotte and Atlanta. So it's called the upstate of South Carolina. And we're getting to the point where it's fall. It's been nice so far, like 50s in the morning, so I can go for walks and stuff like that. But yeah, it's finally fall here. I miss the seasons of Maryland. Not gonna lie, I do miss Baltimore.
I love the seasons of Maryland. I don't really love the summer of Maryland. I'm not super keen on that. But it is very nice to finally transition to like sweater weather. Love it a lot.
Yes.
I think it's going to be a high of like 72 today.
Absolutely. I'm jealous.
Definitely going to get out, take a walk, and get away from the screen for a little bit.
Yeah, I highly recommend. I do that all the time. Like, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to take my book. I've also, one of the like quarantine things that I picked up is I'm in like 3 book clubs now. They're all virtual. Like I went from no book clubs to like 3 book clubs. Not really sure how that happened. I think it was that like craving for like interaction with people, but I'll like take my book outside and like read for 10 minutes, like set a timer and do that kind of thing. So that's helped too.
That's really cool. I like that. So you're involved in lots of things, it seems like nonprofits and where you work and now these book clubs. Is that similar to when you were at Goucher? Were you really involved then as well, or just something you've picked up sort of as quarantine has kind of come into play?
I was a super involved Goucher student, so I was involved with orientation committee for all 3 years and programming board for my last 2 years. I definitely like to stay busy. I was also the first, one of the first, I may have been the first OSE intern that they created that position. So I spent a lot of time with the ladies in the Office of Student Engagement and love them. They were some of the best mentors to have in the world, and really taught me like all the things I know about life and like skills and like interacting with people. They also like spoiled me because I thought that's like how the working world was a little bit, where I was like, oh yeah, we'll just like run and get apple cider donuts. It's great. And then it was like, no, that's not really a thing. But they've definitely like had a big impact on my like work life. So I'm really grateful for them. Yeah.
So was that internship while you were at Goucher, or was that after you finished at Goucher?
Yeah, so that's why I was at Goucher. I guess I can tell you a little bit about like sort of my like work experience a little bit because it is definitely like non-traditional. So right after Goucher, I actually nannied for the summer after I graduated because I was like not going to grad school. Like I didn't have a job lined up, so I was job hunting and nannying, which was really nice to sort of, after being super involved, take that time to sort of like slow down and let myself slow down, which I'm always really bad at. But after that, I actually started at a nonprofit in Baltimore called Hopeful Cancer Support. And they had lost 4 full-time staff members for various reasons. So they had lost their development director, their marketing and development assistant, their admin, and their office manager. So there was a big shoes to fill. So at the time, someone who's a very close family friend was working there, and I said, hey, like, I know this person. She just graduated from Goucher. She's actually a Goucher alum, the woman, my family friend. And she was like, hey, she'd be perfect. So I interviewed, and I think I started like the next day. And I worked at Hopewell. So when I first started, I didn't have a job title. They were kind of like, just learn everything, which, you know, Goucher really prepares you for because it's liberal arts. So you're kind of like, okay, well, now I'm going to do numbers, and then I'm going to do like a little communications, and really like kind of jumped in. At first, a little bit was definitely an exciting fall for me, learning on the job.
I was going to say, awesome experience, a little bit of everything, but definitely a little crazy.
I'm definitely grateful because I have now had experience in marketing and social media and communications and data entry, and like I know how to do like an annual fund mailing from start to finish and how to organize like all the data relation stuff. So really grateful for the experience, and also like I was able to use my creativity to like try new things and sort of that flexibility of sort of making a position for myself, and not getting so stuck in like the titles, because I feel like today we get really stuck in like, this is my job title, and oftentimes like you're not always, other duties as assigned is like more of your job than like what like the description is. At least that's how my job is today. But so I worked for Hopewell for a year, and they sort of gave me the title of marketing and development assistant. And then my family, my dad is a chef, and he moved to New Orleans about when I started Goucher, actually. And he was like, hey, like, I want you to move down here. Like, there's lots of opportunities. Like, it's a really cool city. And I was like, sure, why not? New Orleans, right? And I went into my boss's office, and I said, hey, just to let you know, like, my family is moving. Like, I'm going to move. Like, I'll help, like, remotely train the person. Like, I'll do whatever you need me to. And she was like, well, would you consider like still working for us remotely? And then we'll fly you in for all the big events, and we'll promote you to event coordinator. And I was like, ooh. Okay. Yeah. I was like, cool. This is going to be like a fun job. Like, you know, they'll fly me in and do all that stuff. Definitely was an experience. I learned a lot about like travel and like working while traveling and being in different time zones and stuff like that. Learned a lot that year as well, and actually started volunteering at the Children's Museum in Louisiana. So that was really great. because I was able to make those local connections that I'd had in Baltimore. And then was like, after a year, I was like, I can't do this anymore, like traveling. And I got very familiar with Southwest Airlines, flew a lot in Southwest. And eventually I was like, hey, like, we'll document everything. Like, I'm here if you guys need me, but I need to find something local. And I'd actually found a job at another nonprofit as the communications assistant in Louisiana for the Jewish family. Jewish Family Services of New Orleans as the communications person. So getting to use some of those skills that I had gained working for Hopewell, but in a different capacity. And I was only there for like 4 months because then, again, my dad moved and he asked me, I'm an only child, so I'm really close with my family. So it was important for me to at least try to be in the same time zone as them. So I kept working for Jewish Family Services as sort of a liaison for the website because they were undergoing a website redesign. And then moved to Las Vegas and started working for my current company. We opened the Las Vegas Convention Center right before the big Consumer Electronics Show, which has like millions of people. We got the keys to the building like 4 days before the show started. Yeah, it was a journey. I think I worked Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's Day.
Oh my.
The year before we opened. So it was an experience. I learned a lot. Got crash courses in a lot of business practices. And, I came from the nonprofit world. So I was like, okay, how many reams of paper should we buy? Like 1. And they're like, buy 10 boxes. And I was like, what the heck? Like, no, like, that's too much paper. And they were like, you need to stop thinking like a nonprofit. And I was like, okay. And that's definitely something that stuck with me because I do have that like nonprofit experience and that sort of background. Like for me, it's always been something that I always want to kind of continue and really love because I think being involved in the community is really important. And I think a lot of that has to do with like Goucher and the experiences I had there. So it was in Las Vegas. I promise the story ends soon.
You're fine. No, I'm loving it. I'm getting lots of information.
Yeah. My career is like all over the place sometimes, and that's one of the things is not to have a linear, like you don't have to worry about that so much. And I was super like, I have to be on one path and had to do a lot of like, it's okay to not be that way. So I was working in Las Vegas. Also kind of didn't really have a job title. That seems to be a theme like in my career a little bit. But I started as the executive assistant for the vice president at the time. And then I was basically doing everything because we were really short-staffed and did stuff with IT, did stuff with HR, did stuff with accounting, knew where everything was, sort of became like the point person for everything, which was a little bit scary. Just because everybody had my phone number and I was like, this is too much. Like, stop texting me. I don't know when your shift is. Like, look online. And then we actually had an opening in HR and they needed someone organized and they were like, hey, we know you're doing all this stuff. Can you also be our HR like coordinator? So I took on that role of learning the data entry and the systems that were HR specific. And then during the transition, we did a lot of work with our corporate office, and I actually started interacting with our senior director of IT. And he was like, hey, we have this project coordinator position open in Greenville, South Carolina. Would you consider applying and like coming and like helping us out? Never had heard of Greenville. Had no idea like what a project coordinator did or project manager did. Again, had never heard of Greenville. I've always lived in like big cities like Baltimore and New Orleans and Vegas. And I was like, not sure. I have to come visit. So he actually flew me out to Greenville. And my best friend from Goucher actually Googled Greenville and it was like on like some list of like not good places. And she's like, you can't move there. Just like, you can't move there. I was like, well, I have to like try it. I have to try it. So I came and I saw that they had like a Target and a Trader Joe's and a Whole Foods and like things that were like familiar to me. And I was like, I gotta try this. Like, I gotta like see what this opportunity is. And that was about 3.5 years ago. So I've been in Greenville at this job for about 3 years. So it's been a journey since I graduated.
You really bounced around the country in a lot of different positions. I'm sure you picked up a ton of different skills throughout those positions. So Can you tell me a little more about like what you do now? Because I feel like I've gotten a good sense of sort of some of your other like unnamed positions and what your roles were in that. But I'm a little curious as what the position of IT project coordinator is. Like, what does that entail on a day-to-day basis? What does that look like for you? And how does being in Greenville compare to being in Vegas? Because that's a huge switch.
It was a switch. So it went from having access to basically everything 24/7 to, oh yeah, the pharmacy closes at like 5 o'clock and it's not open on Sundays. And, you know, it's definitely, I've lived in New Orleans and I've lived here, and here is more Southern than New Orleans was. And like when I went outside of New Orleans. So that was definitely culture shock coming from Vegas. But to talk about what I do now, so I wear, again, a lot of hats. So I'm technically the IT project coordinator, but I'm also, basically what that means is every day is different. And we're basically supporting all the systems that our users use. So that's help desk, that's, you know, someone needs something new, if we need to install networking equipment, things like that. I'm involved sort of from a scheduling, equipment management, that sort of perspective. I'm also the administrator for our ServiceNow instance, which is a platform, like a software as a service that sort of allows you to run a help desk and things like that. That's definitely one thing I'd recommend, is there's not a lot of ServiceNow people out there. So if a student who's interested in IT or computer science, definitely looking into the opportunities that ServiceNow has. There's a shortage of people. I get calls from recruiters every day because they see ServiceNow on my LinkedIn and are like, hey. And I'm like, no, I'm not a developer. I dabble in development, but I'm not a developer. I try to save money and like costs and things like that and try to do it myself, but not really my jam. And I also sort of manage our smart sheet. So every day is slightly different, and I interact with our vice presidents, our general managers, our different teams, and sort of help triage things. But yeah, every day is an adventure. Some days, you know, I get to get through my to-do list and get to do what I have planned to do, and other days it's like, nope, this VP couldn't work his headset. Okay, then we're going to try to solve that, and then sort of triage the situation and see who we need to get involved. Or, you know, the network is down at like the Hard Rock Stadium and who needs to be involved in that. Our company did do the Super Bowl last year, which was pretty fun. I didn't get to go. I was really bummed. I know. I was super bummed. I was like, please, like, I'll do whatever. I'll do employee check-in, because I loved employee check-in in Vegas, because it really is an opportunity to like get to see people and say, hey, like, thank you so much for like all your hard work and things like that. But yeah, I was bummed. I was super bummed. I think we have it next year. No, 2022 in New Orleans. So maybe, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed you get to experience that, and then things are back to normal. Absolutely. Yeah. But very cool. It's very nice that what you do every day is different. You don't get bored in it. I'm sure that also keeps it interesting at home, not necessarily having to just go through the same couple steps every day and like, okay, I did this yesterday, I did this day before, I did this for the past 6 months, to like mix that up a little bit. I'm glad that you're liking Greenville, even though it's a little bit culturally shocking and much different from where you're used to. But how did you get here? Like, I know you walked through the different positions you had, but when you were at Goucher, I think I have written down that you were an environmental science and sociology major. Is that correct?
That is definitely correct.
Were you like very interested in IT on the side, or did it just happen through the different positions you had, or did you do an internship or something while you were at Goucher that really made you want to do what you're doing now?
That's a great question, and one I ask myself every day, because I am like not an IT person. I've always been that person that like helps people, like on my family's IT or like neighbors' IT, but I never saw myself like in an IT role. And how I always like to describe, like, not necessarily like the path I took, but sort of the theme that resonates through all of the positions that I've had and sort of the skills, are that environmental science is data. Right. So I actually the summer between freshman and sophomore year, I did research with Dr. Mora in the environmental science department. And what that taught me, a lot of skills, is all about data and like how we use data to use in marketing, how we use data to drive policy, how we use data to do all different kinds of things. So really all the jobs that I've had have sort of all been centered around data and like how we use the data and like, or how we collect data or how we present data. So like at Hopewell, I was in charge of like collecting information about our donors and then presenting that information back to sponsors and like our community. And then at my next job, I was doing the same type of thing I was doing at Hopewell. And then sort of my job with Centerplate was collecting the data on employees, making sure that people had what they needed, things like that, sort of being the point person and seeing how the different pieces connected together. And then now sort of, again, back to that collecting data and presenting it to the different stakeholders and things like that. So I'm super interested in data and how we use data. So definitely right now I'm sort of at that point in my career where I'm trying to decide, do I go back to school for data analytics to really like dive into that, or sort of follow that project management track with the PMP certificate? Because I've learned that you never stop learning and you never stop having to do certificates, which I thought when I graduated Goucher, I was like, I'm done. I don't need to take another test. And then I went to grad school and I was like, nope, I have to take more tests. And then I was like, I'm done with grad school. I'm not going back to school. And then in my professional life, I have certificates that I have to like keep up with. And I was like, really? I don't want to take another test. Like everybody uses Google to like help figure out stuff. Like I don't want to go to a testing center and be tested. So it's definitely, learning never stops. And I think that's really fun. Yeah.
I agree. And there's something you can learn out of every experience every day, like all the skills you've picked up throughout your career. And you just mentioned you went to grad school. When in that mix did you go to grad school?
Yeah. So I went to grad school at the University of New Orleans, and I have a Master's of Science in Hospitality, Tourism, and Restaurant Management because my dad, this is actually kind of a funny story, kind of not. My dad has been in the industry of hospitality for 30 plus years, and he was like, I don't want you to be in this industry because, the long hours, the stress, a whole bunch of reasons. And he was like, the only way I'll let you be in this industry is if you have a degree in it. And I was like, I'll show you. So we were in New Orleans at the time, and UNO had a program that was online. So I knew that it would be flexible in terms of if I wanted to move or things like that. So in 2017, I started it in January, right when I was in like the big transition of being in Las Vegas, being the HR coordinator. So I would stay up till like midnight writing papers and submitting those. And I finished in December of 2017. So it was a year-long program. So definitely multitasked a lot. I would spend my lunch breaks reading. So that was always great. And it was learning that I was seeing in real life. So that was a big help. So like I would read something about like an accounting principle that they use in hospitality. And then I was able to go to the controller at the location and be like, hey, so I don't understand this and I don't understand my online professor. Teach this to me. And was able to sort of use my resources in that way, which I'm so grateful for because otherwise, I still don't really get accounting. I try to, but that's why there's people who are accountants because numbers and I like Excel because it does it for me.
I get that. I definitely get that. But I like that you got that while you were so busy. Like, that must have been insane. The perseverance you have to get through that was incredible. But also you continued to learn stuff, which was really amazing, and I'm glad you were able to do that. Did you perhaps study abroad as well while you were at Goucher, or no?
I did. So because because I was a science major, there's definitely points where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to study abroad. Like, I don't know what study abroad is going to look like. But I was very fortunate. I knew that I wanted to do a 3-week program at some point in my Goucher career. And I knew that I wanted to go to Africa because I had been fortunate enough to go to Europe before. So I was like, I want to try something completely different I've never experienced before. And I went in January of 2013 on the ICA with Eric Singer and Janet Shope. And that's actually, it was like the best experience ever. There was like 7 of us. We got really close. I made some of my lifelong friends on that trip. And really just getting an opportunity like that really shaped why I ended up with a minor in sociology. I didn't pick up my minor till my junior year. So then had to kind of like cram all that stuff in. But really it was like an eye-opening experience to be able to do something outside of the sciences, because it was a sociology and political science ICA, not a science one. So it was great to be able to sort of bring that experience to the group, and sort of it was great. I miss the beaches of Cape Town and the experiences of being with those folks. It was great.
Excellent. What did you do when you were there? You said it was sociology based, but was there any like specific activities you did while you were there?
Yeah.
That forced that?
Yeah, so we worked with a couple of nonprofits while we were there, and Eric and Janet have amazing connections and partnerships. So we spent about, I forget the exact number of days, but we actually went to different places in South Africa. So we spent a little bit of time in Johannesburg working with a couple of nonprofits, learning what they do for the community. And then we actually flew to Durban, which is on the West Coast, I think. My brain's a little fried. But we went to Durban, and we actually did a rural homestay to learn a little bit more and experience what individuals living there go through. So I was actually placed in the most rural one, so we didn't have running water. There was no electricity, and the transportation was non-existent. So that was an experience that I was fortunate enough to have with two other Goucher students. And each of our group was placed in different ones. So we had 3 people placed in a super like urban place that had television and had water. And then we came back together and sort of talked through those experiences. We also spent some time at Warwick Market, which is the largest market in the Southern Hemisphere. And I got to spend the day selling hardware with Seal Bunga. And he trusted me.
So cool.
The 3 people with the money, and I had no idea. He was like, you make the deal. And I was like, I don't understand the currency, but we'll try. And like, I was so honored that he like trusted me in that regard to like deal with the money. And then we ended our trip in Cape Town, where we also worked with a bunch of nonprofits, talking about like maternal health and things like that. So it really was a well-rounded trip in seeing the different places in South Africa and the different communities and the impacts of apartheid and that sort of thing.
That is really cool. I'm so glad you got to have the experience. I'm a little jealous. I'm like, that sounds really cool. I should do that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And just the fact that we really had like Janet and Eric, who like became like our mom and dad on the trip, and like just these like I just wish I could spend more time with them, just in terms of like their life experiences and how much they love South Africa. And they really designed the course we took before we went, and the course we did while we were there, and the activities and the after really like shaped the experience. Like, I think if we had been with anyone else, like it would have been different, but with having them leading it, it was phenomenal. And I miss them. They're really great professors. Like, if you have a chance to take classes with them, I definitely recommend. Yeah.
Will do. Awesome. And I want to be sensitive because I know you said you have a meeting to run to at 12:30. Is there anything you want to share just real quick for like recommendations to our students, or like things that you think they should keep in mind when approaching a career at this time or in the future? Just any last little bits you'd like to share.
Yeah, definitely. So I definitely recommend doing informational interviews regardless of what industry you want to be in. I think the more knowledge that you can get, the more paths and networking that opens up to you. A lot of the jobs that I've gotten have been through connections that I made either through my family or through like my community and things like that. So I think not being afraid to like say like, hey, like I'm curious about what you do. And like say, and then just scheduling time for coffee. That's been something that's been really great for me, is writing to someone on LinkedIn saying, hey, like I think you're doing some really cool stuff. Like, can you tell me what your career path was? And then they give you advice. And then I always also write handwritten thank yous, because I think those are super important, because everything now is so digital that if you get like a good piece of mail, they're like, hey, I remember Lenna, like she sent me a note card, and that means something to people. So I definitely recommend that. And also, if anybody has questions about technology or networking or project management, I'm always happy to sort of talk to Goucher alums or Goucher students and alums alike, to sort of talk through things and be a resource. Because I used a lot of resources when I was a Goucher student, and I know what the impact of our community is across, like even here, like I was like, no one's heard of Goucher. And I went to a shoulder doctor, and it turns out his daughter was my RA in biology my freshman year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, awesome. He was like, well, where'd you go to school? I was like, well, you won't have heard of it. And I was like, Goucher? He's like, oh yeah, my daughter went there. And then I like saw his last name and I was like, is your daughter this? And he's like, yes. Like, she was my biology. And then that was sort of a nice connection. So just remembering that wherever you are in the world, there's someone either knows somebody who went to Goucher or has a connection to Goucher in some way.
That's awesome. Thank you for that advice.
Yeah.
And thank you again for joining us. We're really happy.
Oh, yeah.
You. And I'll definitely send students your way if they have questions.
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect.
And have a good one.
You too. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Enjoy that 70-degree weather for me.
Oh, yeah. I'm loving it. Bye.
Bye.